On the 7th day of the 5th month, in 586 BCE, the reality of devastation enveloped Jerusalem. The Babylonian forces, led by Nebuchadnezzar II, breached the city walls. The siege had lasted 18 months, and the air was thick with the stench of fear and desperation. As the soldiers poured into the city, they unleashed chaos upon the populace, resulting in a catastrophic loss of life. According to 2 Kings 25:10, the flames consumed the heart of the city, the first temple, built by Solomon, a structure of profound significance to the Jewish people. The temple, adorned with gold and intricate carvings, had stood as a testament to the covenant between God and Israel. The destruction was swift and brutal. The Babylonians razed the temple to the ground, leaving nothing but charred remains and scattered ash. Jeremiah, in his Lamentations, paints a harrowing picture of the aftermath. The Lord has rejected his altar. He has abandoned his sanctuary. He has handed over to the enemy the walls of her palaces. The temple's loss signified more than mere physical destruction. It shattered the spiritual core of Jewish identity. In the wake of the devastation, the Babylonians took thousands of Jews captive, forcibly exiling them to Babylon. They marched through the streets, shackles clanking, a grim procession of despair. Jeremiah 52:12-13 recounts the meticulous plunder of the city. In the 5th month, on the 10th day of the month, that was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. This marked the beginning of a long and painful exile, a diaspora that would change the course of Jewish history. The exiles faced a harsh reality in Babylon, a land steeped in foreign customs and traditions. Life was starkly different. They yearned for the lush hills of Judea and the familiar scents of their homeland. The exiled community gathered to mourn, recalling the splendor of the temple and the festivals that had once brought joy. They would remember the sacrifices made at the altar, the songs sung in praise, and the unity felt during Passover. Yet, even in exile, their identity began to take on new forms. The Torah became a lifeline, a means of preserving their culture and faith amidst the chaos. In Babylon, they gathered in groups to study, reciting the sacred texts that shaped their understanding of God and their history. The words of the prophets echoed in their hearts, reminding them of the promise of return, of restoration. The Babylonian captivity lasted 70 years, an extended period that tested the resolve of the Jewish people. In this new land, they struggled with despair, yet their resilience sparked a rekindling of hope. They clung to the belief that they would return to Jerusalem to see the ruins of the temple rebuilt. The mournful songs of exile turned into prayers of longing, echoes of a people determined to survive and to thrive, despite the darkness that enveloped them. As they faced their uncertain future, a profound truth emerged. The loss of the temple did not mean the end of their faith. Rather, it became a catalyst for spiritual reflection and transformation. The community began to redefine their relationship with God, one that was no longer tied solely to the temple, but rooted deeply within their hearts and souls. In the shadows of Babylon, the story of Israel evolved, marked by both sorrow and the undeniable strength of its people. Their history, though fractured, would continue to resonate through the ages, a testament to endurance, faith, and the unyielding hope for a return to their beloved Jerusalem. In the ancient city of around 2000 BCE, a man named Abram found himself at a crossroads. The air was thick with the scent of baked clay and the distant sound of the Euphrates River, a lifeline to the bustling trade routes that defined this vibrant metropolis. It was here, amid the ziggurats and the worship of many gods, that Abram received an extraordinary call. The voice of God pierced through the cacophony of everyday life, urging him to leave his homeland, his family, and everything familiar. God promised Abram that he would become the father of a great nation, a people who would be blessed and, in turn, be a blessing to all families of the earth. Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, God commanded, as recorded in Genesis 12:1. At 75 years of age, Abram faced the daunting prospect of leaving everything he had ever known. Yet, fueled by faith, he obeyed. This act of trust would lay the foundation for a lineage that would shape the course of history. As Abram embarked on his journey, he was not alone. His wife, Sarai, and his nephew Lot accompanied him, along with their household. The caravan, laden with goods and livestock, set out toward an unknown destination. They traveled through the arid plains of Mesopotamia, where the sun cast long shadows over the land, and the heat shimmered like a mirage. Abram's heart raced with both anticipation and trepidation as he stepped into the vast wilderness that lay before him. After many days of travel, Abram and his family arrived at the land of Canaan, a region rich in promise and potential. The lush valleys and hillsides seemed to call out to them. In Canaan, God appeared to Abram once more, reaffirming his promise. "To your offspring, I will give this land." Genesis 12:7. Here, Abram built an altar to the Lord, a symbolic act of gratitude and dedication. This moment marked the beginning of a covenant, a sacred agreement between God and Abram, one that would weave through the fabric of Jewish identity for generations to come. Abram's journey was not without challenges. Famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing him to make a difficult decision. In search of sustenance, he descended into Egypt, a land he had hoped to avoid. There, he encountered the complexities of foreign courts and the dangers that lay in the shadows of power. The pharaoh, intrigued by Sarai's beauty, took her into his palace, and Abram, fearing for his life, lied about their relationship, claiming she was his sister. This deception exposed the fragility of human trust in dire circumstances. But God intervened. Plagues afflicted Pharaoh's household, prompting him to release Sarai and send Abram away. Laden with riches, the irony was not lost on Abram. He had entered Egypt in desperation and left with wealth that would sustain his family. This experience served as a reminder of God's protection, even amid human frailty. Returning to Canaan, Abram's wealth grew, as did his influence. Yet, tension brewed between Abram's herdsmen and those of Lot. The land could not support both their flocks, and conflict seemed inevitable. In a display of humility and generosity, Abram proposed a solution. "Let there be no strife between you and me, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me." Genesis 13:8-9. Lot chose the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley, settling near the city of Sodom, while Abram remained in the hill country. In the solitude of the hills, God spoke to Abram again, expanding his promises. "Lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and to your offspring forever." Genesis 13:14-15. This reaffirmation deepened Abram's faith, even as he longed for a son to inherit the promise. As years passed, Abram remained childless, and the weight of uncertainty pressed upon him. In a moment of despair, he questioned God, expressing his fears that his servant, Eliezer of Damascus, would become his heir. God responded with a powerful vision, assuring him that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the night sky. "Look toward heaven, and number the stars, if you are able to number them. So shall your offspring be." Genesis 15:5. This promise ignited a flicker of hope in Abram's heart, a hope that would sustain him through the trials that lay ahead. In a profound act of faith, Abram believed the Lord, and it was counted to him as righteousness. Genesis 15:6. This moment solidified his relationship with God and established a new paradigm for what it meant to be in covenant with the divine. The concept of righteousness through faith would echo throughout Scripture, becoming a cornerstone of Jewish and Christian theology alike. Yet, the years continued to pass, and frustration mounted. Sarai, feeling the weight of her own barrenness, suggested that Abram take her maidservant, Hagar, as a concubine to bear a child. This decision, born of desperation, led to the birth of Ishmael, a boy who would become the father of a great nation, but whose existence would also sow discord within Abram's household. When Abram was 99 years old, God appeared to him again, revealing the significance of this covenant anew. "I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless," God commanded, promising that Abram would be the father of many nations. Genesis 17:1-4. As a sign of this everlasting covenant, God changed Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of a multitude, and Sarai's name to Sarah, meaning princess, promising that she would bear him a son. The promise seemed impossible. Abraham fell face down, laughing at the thought of a child born to a couple so advanced in age. Yet God assured him, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. Genesis 17:19. The name itself would symbolize laughter, a reminder of the joy that would eventually break through their long years of waiting. In time, as the seasons turned, Sarah conceived and bore a son, Isaac, when Abraham was 100 years old. The laughter of joy echoed throughout their tent, a profound contrast to the years of sorrow and longing. This miracle marked the fulfillment of God's promise, and Abraham named his son Isaac, meaning he laughs, a tribute to the miraculous nature of his birth. The covenant with Abraham was not merely a personal promise, it was the establishment of a people chosen to carry God's message to the world. From Isaac would come Jacob, whose 12 sons would form the tribes of Israel, a lineage that would endure through trials, triumphs, and tribulations. The echoes of Abraham's faith would reverberate through the ages, influencing not only the Jewish tradition, but also the foundations of Christianity and Islam. The legacy of Abraham's journey is a testament to the power of faith amidst uncertainty. His willingness to leave his homeland, to trust in God's promises, and to embrace the unknown paved the way for a people who would come to know the depth of God's love and faithfulness. The story of his call and covenant resonates with the struggles and hopes of countless generations, inviting us to reflect on our own journeys of faith. As the stars twinkled in the night sky over Canaan, Abraham stood beneath them, aware that he was part of something far greater than himself. Each star represented a promise, each promise a thread in the intricate tapestry of history. The journey of the patriarch had begun, a journey that would shape not only his life, but the very course of human civilization. And with that realization, Abraham took a deep breath, ready to embrace the unfolding story that lay ahead. In the 3rd month after the Israelites had left Egypt, they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai, encamping before the mountain. It was in this desolate expanse that a pivotal moment in their history unfolded. Mount Sinai, towering and rugged, would soon become the stage for a divine revelation. The year was approximately 1446 BCE, a time marked by uncertainty and the fledgling identity of a people once enslaved. As they gathered around the base of the mountain, a thick cloud descended, enveloping it in mystery. The air crackled with anticipation, the people of Israel standing in awe, heartbeats echoing the weight of what was about to occur. Moses ascended the mountain, his feet carrying him over rocky terrain, each step a journey toward the divine. The voice of God would soon resonate among the peaks, a voice that would shape the very essence of their community. "Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the people of Israel," God instructed Moses, as recorded in Exodus 19:3. The message was clear. The Israelites were to be a treasured possession, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. This was the covenant, the binding agreement between God and his people. The promise was not just for their survival, but for their transformation into a people defined by divine law and purpose. The people below listened intently, their hearts racing as Moses descended to relay God's message. "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do," they affirmed, their voices rising with fervor. They stood on the threshold of a new identity, the weight of a divine promise settling over them like the heavy clouds above. On the morning of the 3rd day, the atmosphere thickened with tension. The mountain trembled, and the sound of a loud trumpet echoed, increasing in intensity until it pierced through the very marrow of their bones. The Israelites gathered at the foot of Mount Sinai, their eyes fixed on the towering peak now cloaked in smoke. For the Lord descended upon it in fire. The smoke went up like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly, Exodus 19:18 recounts. Nature itself seemed to bow before the Creator, a spectacle that left them both terrified and amazed. As Moses approached the top, he was instructed to set boundaries around the mountain. "Take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death," God warned, emphasizing the sanctity of the moment. The boundaries served as a reminder of their separation from the holiness of God. Only Moses was permitted to ascend. A deep silence enveloped the valley as Moses entered the cloud, his figure slowly disappearing from view. He stood alone in the presence of God, a profound honor bestowed upon him as the mediator of this sacred covenant. In that moment of divine communion, the Lord spoke, revealing the 10 Commandments, fundamental principles that would guide the moral and ethical life of Israel. "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery," began the proclamation, as recorded in Exodus 20 verse 2. This introduction was not merely a reminder of their past, but a declaration of authority and a foundation for the laws that would follow. The first commandment resounded, "You shall have no other gods before me." Each commandment was a revelation that would shape their society. Prohibitions against murder, theft, adultery, and false witness. Honor your father and mother. Keep the Sabbath day holy. These edicts were not arbitrary. They were woven into the very fabric of their covenantal relationship with God. They provided a framework for community, justice, and reverence, ensuring that the Israelites would not merely survive, but thrive as a people set apart. As Moses descended the mountain, his countenance shone with an unearthly light, a reflection of the divine encounter he had experienced. The people gasped at his appearance, fearful and awed. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, he did not know that the skin of his face shone because he had been talking with God, Exodus 34:29 reveals. This radiance was a testament to his role as the bearer of the covenant, a mediator between the divine and the human. The tablets were inscribed with the finger of God, a physical manifestation of his presence and authority. Yet, as the people observed Moses, their fear mingled with confusion. They struggled to comprehend the implications of the covenant. The laws would demand discipline and commitment, a shift from their former life of oppression to one of responsibility and moral integrity. Moses called the elders of Israel and relayed the commands he had received. He urged them to prepare to be a holy nation, a people who would live in accordance with the divine will. "These words that I command you today shall be on your heart," he implored, as recorded in Deuteronomy 6:6. The covenant was not merely a set of rules, it was a way of life that would define their identity and purpose as God's chosen people. Yet the gravity of the covenant brought with it a daunting realization. The Israelites would be held accountable for their actions. Their commitment to these laws would determine their relationship with God and their standing as a nation. The stakes were high, for failure would lead to consequences far beyond mere disobedience. It risked their very identity and existence. As they began to internalize the commands, the Israelites stood at a crossroads. Would they embrace the covenant and strive to uphold these laws, or would they falter in their faith? The memory of slavery lingered in their minds, a reminder of the ease of compliance under oppression. But now they were called to choose freedom, a freedom that required courage, faith, and a willingness to sacrifice. The people answered in unison, "All the words that the Lord has spoken, we will do," as recorded in Exodus 24 verse 3. Their declaration echoed through the valley, a commitment that would resonate through generations. Yet the reality of their decision was yet to unfold, and the challenges ahead would test their resolve. 3 days later, the covenant was formally ratified. Moses built an altar at the foot of the mountain, a symbol of their commitment to the agreement made with God. He took young bulls and offered sacrifices, sprinkling their blood upon the altar and upon the people as a sign of the covenant. "Behold the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you," he declared, sealing their commitment in a sacred act that bound them to their divine promise. The people's journey was just beginning. The laws given at Sinai would guide them, but the path was fraught with trials. They would face hunger and thirst, doubts and rebellions. Yet the covenant provided a framework of hope and a reminder of God's unwavering presence. In their darkest moments, they could return to the laws that defined them, seeking guidance, redemption, and the strength to persevere. As the Israelites prepared to continue their journey through the wilderness, they carried with them the weight of the covenant, a living testament to their relationship with God. The laws were not mere rules. They were the embodiment of divine love and purpose, guiding them toward a future filled with possibility. Moses, now a leader forged in the crucible of divine encounter, understood the gravity of his role. He would guide them through trials, reminding them of their commitment. Though the journey would be long and arduous, The covenant established at Sinai would serve as a beacon of hope, a light in the darkness, illuminating the path ahead. As they set out toward the promised land, the words of the covenant echoed in their hearts, reminding them of who they were and whose they were. The mountain loomed behind them, a silent witness to the moment that would forever change their identity. With each step, they carried the weight of the law, a divine gift and challenge, a reminder that they were called not just to follow, but to flourish as a holy nation. The city of Jerusalem, perched atop its hallowed hills, would soon witness a transformation that would alter the course of Israel's history. Around 1000 BCE, David, newly anointed king, set his sights on this coveted city known as Jebus. The inhabitants, descendants of the Jebusites, fortified their stronghold with towering walls and a deep well, believing themselves invincible. Yet, David was resolute. He saw not merely a city, but the future heart of a united Israel. In a bold maneuver, David gathered his warriors and devised a plan to penetrate the city through the water shaft. As 2 Samuel 5:6 records, "And the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites." This was no mere military campaign. It was an act of faith, driven by a vision of unity and divine favor. The siege was swift, and within a short span, the walls of Jebus fell to David's forces. The Jebusites, once proud and secure, were driven out, and Jerusalem was declared the capital of David's kingdom. With the conquest complete, David established his reign, uniting the tribes of Israel under one banner. He sought to create a central place of worship, a sacred space that would unite his people in their devotion to Yahweh. David longed to build a temple, a permanent dwelling for the Ark of the Covenant, which symbolized God's presence among his people. The Ark had journeyed with the Israelites through the wilderness and was now housed in a tent. But David envisioned something grander. The exhilaration of conquest was palpable, yet it was tempered by the weight of his ambitions. David's desire to build the temple was met with divine intervention. The prophet Nathan conveyed God's message, "You shall not build a house for me to dwell in," 2 Samuel 7:5. Instead, God promised that David's lineage would endure, and it would be his son, Solomon, who would construct the temple. This promise brought both relief and a sense of purpose to David, who recognized the significance of this divine covenant. As king, David was not merely a warrior, he was also a poet and a musician. The Book of Psalms, attributed to him, reflects a deep spiritual connection to God. It is said that David's heart was after God's own heart, 1 Samuel 13:14, and his psalms resonate with themes of praise, repentance, and longing for God's presence. The melodies that flowed from his harp echoed through the hills, capturing the essence of a people yearning for connection and guidance. The consolidation of power came with challenges. David faced internal strife and external threats. The Philistines, ever a formidable adversary, sought to undermine his rule. In 2 Samuel 5:17, it is recorded that the Philistines went up to search for David, but he remained undeterred. With strategic acumen, he sought divine counsel and decisively defeated them in the valley of Rephaim. The victory solidified his position, but it also stirred the cauldron of political intrigue. David's rule would not be without consequence. His decisions would shape the very fabric of Israel's identity. As Jerusalem flourished, David established a new order. He implemented systems of governance that balanced justice with compassion. The people would speak of his reign for generations to come. Yet, in his quest to unify the nation and secure his legacy, David faced personal trials that would test his character. His infamous encounter with Bathsheba, as recounted in 2 Samuel 11, brought forth a profound moral crisis. The repercussions of his actions rippled through his household and the kingdom, illustrating the complexities of leadership and the human condition. David's reign was marked by both triumph and turmoil. The echoes of war and the strains of governance could be felt in every corner of his kingdom. Despite the challenges, David remained devoted to his vision of a united Israel. He surrounded himself with wise advisors, including Joab, his military commander, who played a crucial role in his campaigns. Their camaraderie would prove essential in navigating the turbulent waters of leadership. The establishment of Jerusalem as the political and spiritual center of Israel was not merely a geographical shift. It represented a profound shift in identity. The people began to see themselves as a chosen nation, bound by covenant and purpose. The city itself, with its sacred sites and burgeoning culture, became a symbol of hope and resilience. As David danced before the ark during its procession to Jerusalem, the jubilant shouts of the people resonated through the streets, embodying the spirit of a nation reclaimed. In the midst of this dynamic transformation, David faced a pivotal moment when the ark was finally brought to its new home. The moment was steeped in significance, as it was more than a relocation of an artifact. It was a return to the heart of worship. The celebrations were marked by offerings and sacrifices, a communal acknowledgement of God's presence. The people of Israel, united in their faith, rejoiced, echoing the words of Psalm 132, "Arise, O Lord, and go to your resting place, you and the ark of your might." Yet, the path of leadership is rarely smooth. David's personal failures would haunt him, culminating in the rebellion of his own son, Absalom. The strife within his family mirrored the challenges of the kingdom itself. As Absalom sought to usurp the throne, David's heart was torn, caught between love for his son and the duty to his people. The battle that ensued would leave scars, both physical and emotional, on the kingdom and its leader. Amidst the turmoil, David's legacy began to take shape. His establishment of Jerusalem and the plans for the temple laid the groundwork for a future that would unfold through generations. The lineage of David would be entwined with the destiny of Israel, leading to the coming of a messianic figure that would fulfill God's promises. This hope, interwoven with the fabric of the nation, would echo through the ages and shape the identity of the Jewish people. As the sun set over the hills of Jerusalem, David contemplated the weight of his reign. The dreams of a temple, a lasting sanctuary for God's presence, lingered in his heart. While he would not see it come to fruition, his vision would inspire generations to come. The foundations for the future were being laid, not only in stone, but in the spirit of a people united in faith, resilience, and hope. In the twilight of his life, David reflected on the triumphs and tribulations of his reign. The psalms he penned during his journey would carry the echoes of his soul, encapsulating the struggles and joys of a king who sought after God's heart. His legacy was not just in the conquests he achieved, but in the covenant he upheld, the faith he nurtured, and the nation he united. As he closed his eyes, perhaps he found solace in the understanding that he was a part of a divine narrative much larger than himself, a story of struggle, redemption, and hope that would continue to unfold in the hearts of his people. In the 13th year of the reign of King Josiah, in 626 BCE, the voice of the Lord came to the prophet Jeremiah, a young man tasked with a grave warning. The people of Judah had turned away from God, indulging in idolatry and injustice, ignoring the relentless cries of their prophets. Jeremiah, often referred to as the weeping prophet, stood as a solitary figure amidst a society steeped in corruption, delivering messages that fell on deaf ears. He would declare, "For 23 years, the word of the Lord has come to me, and I have spoken to you again and again, but you have not listened." Jeremiah 25:3. By 586 BCE, Jeremiah's prophecies reached a catastrophic climax. The siege of Jerusalem began, lasting 18 harrowing months under the relentless assault of Nebuchadnezzar II's forces. The city, once vibrant with life, was now consumed by despair. The walls trembled under the battering rams, as desperation seeped into the hearts of its inhabitants. The cries of the wounded and the starving echoed through the narrow streets, mingling with the acrid smell of smoke from the burning homes. The Jewish people, who had once gathered in the temple to celebrate the Passover, now found themselves fighting for survival amidst the ruins of their sacred city. As the siege wore on, supplies dwindled. The price of grain skyrocketed. A shekel of silver could barely purchase a loaf of bread. Families resorted to unimaginable measures, as hunger gnawed at their bellies like a ravenous beast. Jeremiah described the dire situation, exclaiming, "The hands of compassionate women have boiled their own children. They became their food in the destruction of the daughter of my people." Lamentations 4:10. The depth of their suffering was unimaginable. Children cried in hunger, mothers wept for their lost sons, and fathers, once proud, were reduced to beggars. On the 9th day of the 4th month, the walls finally fell. The Babylonian army stormed into Jerusalem, and with it came destruction. The second book of Kings recounts the horror. The king of Babylon slaughtered the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. He also killed all the officials of Judah. 2 Kings 25:7. Zedekiah, the last king of Judah, witnessed the execution of his sons, a sight that shattered his spirit before he was blinded and taken captive. The once mighty temple, where the people had felt the presence of God, was set ablaze, its golden artifacts looted and shattered. The sacred space, built by Solomon around 960 BCE, was reduced to ashes, a profound loss that echoed through the hearts of the exiled. The destruction of the temple was not just a physical loss, it was a spiritual calamity. The Jewish people believed the temple was the dwelling place of God, a direct connection to the divine. With its loss, their identity was fractured. Jeremiah, witnessing the ruin, lamented, "How lonely sits the city that was full of people. How like a widow has she become, she who was great among the nations." Lamentations 1:1. The city, once filled with laughter and joy, was now a desolate shadow of its former self. The aftermath of the siege brought the Babylonian exile, a period that would last for 70 years, forcing the Jewish people to confront their shattered existence. The exiles were marched to Babylon, a journey filled with grief and uncertainty. They traveled along the Euphrates River, the waters reflecting their tears as they left behind the land of their ancestors. The prophet Ezekiel, among the captives, would later receive visions of hope, but for now, despair loomed large. In Babylon, the exiles were subjected to the whims of their captors. They were forced into labor, building the very empire that had destroyed their homeland. Yet, even in this foreign land, their faith did not waver entirely. They gathered in small groups, sharing stories of their heritage and the teachings of the Torah. The Book of Psalms became a source of comfort. Psalm 137 captured their sorrow. "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion." The act of remembering became a lifeline, a tether to their past, and a whisper of hope for their future. In the midst of their captivity, they clung to the words of the prophet Jeremiah, who had foreseen this moment. He had warned them of their impending exile, but also offered a glimmer of hope. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. These words became a balm for their wounded spirits, a promise that their story was not yet over. As the years of exile stretched on, the Jewish people began to adapt. They established communities, synagogues, and maintained their customs, even while surrounded by foreign cultures. The laughter of children playing in the dust of Babylon mingled with the solemn recitations of prayers, as the rhythms of their faith wove through their daily lives. The lessons of resilience taken from their suffering became a cornerstone of their identity, a belief that even in the depths of despair, God was still present, watching over them. In 539 BCE, the tides of history shifted once more. Cyrus the Great, the king of Persia, conquered Babylon and issued a decree allowing the exiles to return to Jerusalem. For the Jewish people, this moment was nothing short of miraculous. The words of Isaiah echoed in their hearts. "Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped, to subdue nations before him." Isaiah 45:1. The return to their homeland was a beacon of hope, a chance to rebuild what had been lost. The journey back was not without its challenges. The land lay in ruins, the once grand temple now only a memory. Yet, the returning exiles carried with them not just the remnants of their past, but a renewed determination to restore their covenant with God. Under the leadership of figures like Zerubbabel and Ezra, the foundations of the Second Temple were laid, a testament to their resilience and faith. The Babylonian exile was a period of profound suffering and transformation, a time when the Jewish people faced unimaginable trials, yet emerged with a deeper understanding of their identity and faith. They learned that their connection to God transcended the physical space of the temple, finding solace in prayer and community, even in the darkest of times. As the dust settled on Jerusalem's ruins, a new chapter began, one marked by hope, renewal, and an enduring legacy that would echo through the ages. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a remarkable decree echoed through the halls of power. The year was 538 BCE, and the prophet Isaiah had foretold this moment centuries earlier, naming Cyrus as the one who would fulfill God's purpose. "He is my shepherd, and he shall fulfill all my purpose." Isaiah 44:28. This proclamation was not merely a political maneuver, it was the divine hand at work, orchestrating the return of the exiled people to their homeland. As the news spread, the hearts of the Jewish exiles stirred with anticipation and trepidation. After decades of captivity in Babylon, they were finally granted permission to return to Jerusalem. The text of Cyrus's decree, preserved in the annals of history, ordered that any among the Jews who wished to go back could do so, and that they would be supported in rebuilding the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. Ezra 1:1-4. The very walls of Babylon that had witnessed their lamentations now echoed with the promise of restoration. Among those who felt the call to return was Zerubbabel, a descendant of King David, who would lead the first wave of returnees. The journey back to Zion was not merely a geographical transition. It was a pilgrimage steeped in the hope of re-establishing their identity and faith. As they traveled, the barren landscape of Mesopotamia gradually transformed into the familiar hills of Judea, each step bringing them closer to a land that held their collective memories and sacred aspirations. The sight of Jerusalem, with its ruined walls and the remnants of the once glorious temple, weighed heavily on their hearts. They arrived in the autumn of 537 BCE, a time when the leaves rustled underfoot and the air was thick with the dust of centuries of neglect. The city lay in silence, a ghost of its former self, yet the promise of rebuilding ignited a flicker of resilience among the people. They gathered, hearts pounding, at the sight of the temple, eager to reclaim their spiritual and cultural heritage. In the ensuing months, the exiles set to work. They began to rebuild the altar, a symbol of their renewed faith and connection to God. The first sacrifices were offered in the spring of 536 BCE, marking a profound moment of restoration. The joy was palpable, as the people rejoiced at the prospect of re-establishing their covenant with the divine. They offered burnt offerings to the Lord, even though the foundation of the temple had not yet been laid. Ezra 3:6. The sound of their worship echoed through the valley, a melody of hope rising above the ruins. Yet, the path to reconstruction was fraught with challenges. Opposition arose from neighboring tribes who viewed the return of the Jews with hostility. The Samaritans, in particular, sought to undermine their efforts, attempting to dissuade the returning exiles from their mission. They sent letters to Cyrus, questioning the legitimacy of the Jewish claim to the land and attempting to halt the rebuilding process. Despite these threats, Zerubbabel and the leaders remained steadfast, drawing strength from the very prophecies that had heralded their return. The completion of the temple was not swift. Years passed, and the work progressed slowly, hindered by external pressures and internal strife. Yet, hope lingered like a promise in the air. The prophetic words of Haggai resonated among the returning exiles, urging them to persevere. "Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel," declares the Lord. "Be strong, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord. Work, for I am with you." Haggai 4. These words kindled a fire within their hearts, urging them to rise above despair. By 516 BCE, after nearly 2 decades of struggle, the Second Temple was finally completed. The joyful dedication ceremony was a moment of profound significance. The people gathered, tears mingling with joyful shouts as they witnessed the rebirth of their sacred space. The priests, clad in their garments, offered sacrifices, and the sound of trumpets heralded the new beginning. The joy was deep and genuine, though it was tinged with the bittersweet knowledge that this temple would never rival the grandeur of Solomon's, which had stood before the destruction. Yet, it was a place of connection, a new home for their faith. In the years that followed, the city began to thrive once more. Ezra, a scribe and priest, arrived in Jerusalem around 458 BCE, bringing with him a passion for restoring the law among the people. His journey was motivated by a desire to teach the Torah and re-establish Jewish identity in the wake of the exile. Ezra's heart was heavy with the knowledge that the covenant relationship with God had to be nurtured, especially amidst the challenges of reintegration into their homeland. Upon his arrival, Ezra gathered the people at the water gate. Reading from the law of Moses, which the Lord had commanded for Israel, Nehemiah 8:1. The response of the people was overwhelming. They wept as the words of the Torah washed over them, reminding them of their covenant and identity. For all the people wept as they heard the words of the law, Nehemiah 8:9. The emotional weight of the moment was palpable, as the realization set in that they were no longer merely exiles, but a people restored to their land and their faith. Ezra's leadership marked a pivotal moment in the history of Israel, as he worked earnestly to ensure the people adhered to the law and maintained their distinct identity. He initiated reforms aimed at purifying the community from foreign influences, emphasizing the importance of intermarriage laws and the observance of festivals. His efforts were not without resistance. Some viewed his strictness as an imposition. Nevertheless, Ezra remained resolute, believing that the strength of their community rested on their fidelity to the commandments given to them by God. The narrative of restoration continued to unfold as Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem around 445 BCE, driven by the report of the city's distress and the shambles of its walls. With fervor and determination, he rallied the people to rebuild the city's defenses. So we rebuilt the wall, for the people had a mind to work, Nehemiah 4:6. Together, they faced ridicule and opposition, yet their resolve only strengthened. The rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls was a testament to their commitment to protect their renewed identity. The completion of the walls in just 52 days was nothing short of miraculous. It symbolized the resilience and unity of a people who had endured immense trials yet emerged stronger than ever. As the gates were hung and the city fortified, the echoes of celebration reverberated through the streets. The people gathered once more, and Nehemiah led them in a solemn assembly, dedicating the walls with thanksgiving and joy. The spirit of hope, once extinguished in Babylon, now burned brightly in Jerusalem. As the years passed, the legacy of the return to Zion became woven into the fabric of Jewish identity. The Second Temple stood not just as a physical structure, but as a beacon of hope, a reminder of divine faithfulness amid adversity. Each stone held the stories of those who had come before, who had faced despair and yet returned with courage. The memories of the exile lingered, but they also served as a powerful reminder of what could be rebuilt through faith, community, and unwavering determination. The story of Israel's return is one of resilience and hope, echoing through the annals of history. It captures the essence of a people who, despite losing everything, found the strength to rise again. As they rebuilt their city and re-established their community, they also rekindled their covenant with God, realizing that their identity was not merely tied to land or temple, but to the enduring promise of divine presence. In the years that followed, as the shadows of the past faded, the people looked forward with anticipation, ready to embrace the future that lay ahead. With the temple standing in the heart of Jerusalem, they sought to renew their devotion, to live out the covenant that had been restored. The legacy of those who returned to Zion would resonate through generations, a testament to the enduring spirit of a people who, in the face of overwhelming odds, chose to believe in hope and the promise of a new dawn. In 63 BCE, the Roman general Pompey invaded Judea, marking the beginning of a tumultuous era in the land of Israel. With calculated moves, Pompey laid siege to Jerusalem, eventually entering the holy city in a manner that would forever alter its fate. The sacred temple, the heart of Jewish worship, stood vulnerable before the might of Rome. Pompey, after breaching its sanctum, dared to enter the innermost chamber, a space reserved for the presence of God, igniting outrage among the Jewish populace. Josephus, the Jewish historian, later recounted this act with anguish, noting that the temple's desecration was a harbinger of the suffering yet to come. Under Roman control, Judea was transformed into a client kingdom, governed by a series of rulers beholden to the whims of Rome. Among them was Herod the Great, appointed king of Judea in 37 BCE, whose reign would leave a complex legacy. Herod, known for his architectural prowess, initiated large-scale projects, including the expansion of the Second Temple, which sought to impress both locals and Roman officials. This temple became a symbol of Jewish identity, yet it was also a stark reminder of their subjugation. The construction was grand, the temple's western wall, still revered today, was a testament to Herod's ambition. Yet, it was built amidst a backdrop of fear, resentment, and exploitation. Daily life for the average Jew under Roman rule was marked by heavy taxation and the constant threat of violence. The Roman Empire imposed taxes that drained resources, with the tax collector often viewed as an enemy. A peasant labourer was expected to pay taxes amounting to up to 40% of their earnings, often leading to desperate circumstances. Josephus noted that during Herod's reign, the common people found themselves increasingly impoverished, creating an environment ripe for dissent. The cries of the poor echoed through the streets of Jerusalem, where resentment simmered against both the Roman overlords and their local puppet king. The discontent birthed several Jewish sects, each grappling with the oppressive reality of Roman occupation. Among them were the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the ascetic Essenes, who sought solace in isolation from the corrupt world around them. The Essenes, in particular, withdrew to the desolate shores of the Dead Sea, where they established a community dedicated to piety and the study of Scripture. Their existence is illuminated by the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, which contain texts that provide insight into their beliefs and practices during the turbulent Second Temple period. These scrolls reveal a group that anticipated an impending apocalyptic transformation, a belief that God would soon intervene to restore Israel. The Pharisees, known for their emphasis on oral law and ritual purity, sought to adapt Jewish life to the realities of Roman rule. Their teachings spread among the common people, as they emphasized ethical conduct and the importance of the Torah in daily life. In contrast, the Sadducees, who held power in the temple, often aligned with the Roman authorities, leading to their vilification by the populace. This division among the Jewish people reflected a broader struggle over identity and authority in a land besieged by foreign dominion. The impact of Roman rule was further felt through the imposition of Hellenistic culture, which clashed with Jewish traditions. The Romans, seeking to integrate their empire, introduced practices that were often seen as blasphemous. Public games, idol worship, and the veneration of Roman emperors as divine posed direct challenges to Jewish monotheism. The tension reached a boiling point during the reign of Emperor Caligula, who, in 40 CE, ordered a statue of himself to be erected in the temple. The Jewish people viewed this demand as an affront to their faith, igniting widespread rebellion. In the midst of this unrest, the prophecy surrounding the coming of a Messiah loomed large in the hearts of many Jews. This anticipation was not merely spiritual, it was born from the very real suffering they endured under Roman rule. The Gospels recount the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem during the reign of Herod, a moment heralded by the arrival of wise men from the east, who sought the newborn king. Matthew 2:1-12 describes these magi as following a star, a symbol of hope in dark times. They arrived bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, acknowledging the significance of this child in a world seeking liberation from oppression. Yet, Herod's reign was not to be overshadowed by the promise of peace and salvation. In a desperate attempt to eliminate any threat to his throne, he ordered the massacre of all male infants in Bethlehem, an event that would come to be remembered as the slaughter of the innocents. This brutal act, as recounted in Matthew 2:16-18, reflects the depths of Herod's paranoia and the lengths to which he would go to maintain his power. The cries of mourning filled the air, symbolizing the intersection of hope and despair in a land yearning for liberation. As the years progressed, the oppressive grip of Rome tightened. The Jewish revolt against Roman authority erupted in 66 CE, fueled by a desire for freedom and an end to the injustices they had endured for decades. The initial successes of the Zealots, who led the charge, ignited a flame of hope that briefly flickered brightly. The siege of Jerusalem began in 70 CE, culminating in the destruction of the Second Temple by the Roman general Titus. This event, pivotal in Jewish history, marked not only the loss of the temple, but also the beginning of a new phase in Jewish identity, one that would be shaped by diaspora and resilience. The aftermath of the destruction was profound. The loss of the temple, the center of Jewish worship and community life, left a void that would redefine Jewish practice. Rabbinic Judaism emerged as a response to these changes, focusing on the study of the Torah and the importance of community. The rituals and traditions that would shape Judaism for centuries were forged in the crucible of loss and exile, reminding the Jewish people of their enduring connection to their heritage. As the dust settled in the wake of the Roman conquest and the subsequent destruction of Jerusalem, the hope for a Messiah remained a powerful force within the Jewish psyche. The stories of the past were woven together with dreams of a future redemption, a promise that one day the Jewish people would reclaim their land and restore their identity. The legacy of those tumultuous years, filled with both suffering and resilience, would echo through the ages, leaving an indelible mark on the history of Israel and the hearts of its people. The Roman occupation had irrevocably altered the landscape of Judea, yet it was also a period of profound spiritual questioning and redefinition. The aspirations of the Jewish people, intertwined with their faith, continued to inspire generations, shaping the very fabric of their identity. Amidst the ruins of a once great city, the flicker of hope endured, a testament to the resilience of a people longing for freedom and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The year was 70 CE, and the air in Jerusalem was thick with tension. The Roman legions, led by General Titus, encircled the city, their war machines casting shadows across the sun-baked walls. The siege began in April, and by the summer, the situation had escalated into a desperate struggle for survival. Josephus, a Jewish historian and former general, recorded the harrowing details of this time in his work, The Jewish War. He described how the citizens of Jerusalem were driven to the brink of starvation as supplies dwindled. The famine was so great, he wrote, that the rich men took to eating the hides of their belts. As the days turned into weeks, the walls of Jerusalem loomed like a prison, trapping its inhabitants in a nightmare. The Romans, methodical and relentless in their approach, constructed siege works and battering rams, slowly dismantling the city's defenses. By July, the Romans had breached the outer walls, and chaos ensued. The cries of the wounded filled the air, mingling with the acrid smell of smoke from burning buildings. The Second Temple, the heart of Jewish worship, stood defiant against the forces of destruction, but its fate was sealed. Inside the city, the desperation became palpable. Families huddled together, their faces gaunt and hollow, children weeping for food they could not have. The historian Josephus recounts the tragic fate of a mother who, in her madness, cooked her own child. The fury of hunger had driven her to this, he observed with horror. Such acts of desperation became more frequent as the siege dragged on. On the 9th of Av, the day the temple was set ablaze, the flames consumed the sacred structure. As the flames rose, Josephus wrote, the lamentations of the people could be heard echoing through the city. The destruction was not merely physical, it marked the spiritual and cultural obliteration of a people. The Second Temple, the centerpiece of Jewish life and identity for centuries, was reduced to smoldering ruins. The fall of Jerusalem was not merely the loss of a city, it was a catastrophic blow to the Jewish nation. The ancient prophecies, such as those found in Luke 21:20-24, echoed ominously. When you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you will know that its desolation is near. The dashing hopes of restoration and kingdom were shattered, leaving the Jewish people scattered and vulnerable. As the Romans took control, the streets of Jerusalem ran red with the blood of the slain. Josephus estimated that over 1 million Jews perished during the siege, while thousands more were sold into slavery. No city ever suffered such calamities, he lamented. The remaining inhabitants, exhausted and defeated, were forced to abandon their homes, their hopes, and their dreams. The aftermath of the siege saw a mass exodus. Many fled to nearby towns, while others sought refuge in far-flung corners of the empire. The Jewish people, once united in their faith and culture, became a diaspora, splintered and searching for a new identity. The Roman historian Tacitus captured the transformation. The Jews, once a proud nation, now dispersed throughout the world, carried their ancient customs with them. In the years that followed, the legacy of the destruction would shape Jewish thought and practice. The loss of the temple forced a re-examination of faith, leading to the rise of synagogues as centers of worship. Where once the people gathered to offer sacrifices, they now turned to prayer and study. The rabbinic tradition flourished as leaders sought to preserve the essence of Judaism amid the ruins. The Jewish revolt against Roman rule, which had ignited a decade prior, would be remembered not just for its failure, but for the resilience it sparked. The stories of those who perished became part of a collective memory, a testament to the endurance of a people who refused to be extinguished. "There is no greater tragedy," wrote Josephus, "than the loss of one's homeland." In the decades that followed, the scars of the siege remained fresh. In 135 CE, following another revolt known as the Bar Kokhba Revolt, Emperor Hadrian would inflict further devastation on the land, renaming it Judea and forbidding Jews from entering Jerusalem. Yet, even in these harsh realities, hope flickered. The promise of return, though fraught with obstacles, became a rallying cry for generations to come. The Jewish people would carry their grief, their hopes, and their dreams through time. The destruction of Jerusalem and the Temple marked a pivotal chapter, one that would resonate through the ages, shaping their identity in ways both profound and lasting. As the echoes of the past faded, the lessons of resilience and faith endured. The Jewish people, scattered yet united by memory, continued to embrace their heritage, forging new paths in distant lands while holding tightly to the stories of a glorious past. They would remember the words of the prophet Jeremiah, who had urged them to seek the welfare of the city where they found themselves in exile, for in its peace lay their peace. In the quiet moments of reflection, as they gathered in homes and synagogues around the world, they could still feel the spirit of Jerusalem. The ancient stones whispered tales of struggle and strength, serving as a reminder that though the city lay in ruins, the heart of its people beat on, unyielding in the face of adversity. This was not the end, but rather a transformation, a journey through despair and longing, leading to new beginnings. The history of Israel, marked by both triumph and tragedy, would continue to unfold, a testament to the enduring spirit of its people. The flames that consumed the temple did not extinguish the faith. They ignited a new chapter in the rich tapestry of Jewish history, one that would be woven with resilience, hope, and an unwavering connection to their roots. And so, as the echoes of the past whispered through the ages, the Jewish people moved forward, carrying with them the lessons learned from the ashes of Jerusalem, forever committed to preserving their identity against the winds of change. As the dust settled on the tumultuous events that shaped Israel's history, a profound legacy emerged, one that spoke of resilience, faith, and the enduring promise of divine presence. In the midst of destruction and despair, the Israelites clung to the words of their ancestors, echoing through generations. "Blessed be the Lord, that hath given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he promised. There hath not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moses his servant." 1 Kings 8:57 KJV. This verse, uttered at the dedication of Solomon's temple in 957 BCE, encapsulated the hopes of a people repeatedly tested yet never abandoned. The temple itself, a magnificent structure of gold and cedar, stood as a testament to the covenant between God and Israel. It was here that they believed the divine presence dwelled most intimately, a place of sacrifice and prayer. The temple was not merely a building, it represented the heart of Jewish identity and worship. The sacrifices made upon its altar, particularly during the festivals, reaffirmed the connection between the heavens and the earth, and the rituals performed encapsulated centuries of tradition and devotion. The legacy of Israel was forged through trials that spanned millennia, from the wanderings in the wilderness to the conquests of David and Solomon, and the eventual calamities faced under Roman rule. Yet, despite the exiles and the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, the spirit of the Jewish people persisted. The words of the prophets, such as Isaiah and Jeremiah, who spoke of hope and restoration, became guiding lights through the darkness. They promised a return to the land, a restoration of the covenant, and a renewed relationship with God. In the aftermath of the destruction of Jerusalem, the Jewish people found solace in the Torah and the teachings of their sages. The oral traditions, which later became the foundation for the Talmud, ensured that their history, laws, and beliefs would not fade into obscurity. The resilience displayed during these times became a core part of Jewish identity, fostering a sense of community and shared purpose. As they gathered in synagogues, they kept alive the memory of their homeland, nurturing a hope that one day they would return. Moreover, the legacy of Israel transcends its geographic boundaries, influencing countless cultures and faiths throughout history. Christianity emerged from the Jewish tradition, marking the arrival of a new covenant that resonated with the promise of redemption. The teachings of Jesus, seen by Christians as the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy, further intertwined the destinies of these faiths, creating a complex tapestry of belief and heritage. In modern times, the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 marked a significant moment of fulfillment for many Jews worldwide, rekindling the dreams of a homeland that had long been a source of longing and prayer. The struggles faced by the new nation, from conflict to resilience, echoed the historical challenges endured throughout the centuries. Yet, the spirit of the people remained unbroken, fortified by the enduring belief in a divine promise that had and would continue to guide them. As we reflect on this rich and complex history, the words from 1 Kings remind us that every promise made by God has been fulfilled. The legacy of Israel is not merely a chronicle of triumphs and tribulations, it is a testament to the strength of faith and the unwavering hope that defines a people. Blessed be the Lord, that hath given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he promised. There hath not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moses his servant. This echoes through the ages, a reminder of God's faithfulness amidst the trials of life, as the legacy of Israel continues to inspire and resonate across generations. That brings us to the end of the history of Israel. In this episode, we explored the history of Israel during a time of great despair, as Jerusalem fell to Nebuchadnezzar II, leading to an 18-month siege and a 70-year captivity in Babylon. Key figures like Jeremiah and Nebuzaradan navigated this tumultuous period, while the exiles held on to hope for their eventual return and the rebuilding of their homeland. The emotional journey reflected themes of loss and resilience in the face of adversity. Before we close, a prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for the real people and real moments you preserved so faithfully across thousands of years. Stories of faith, of failure, and of your grace that never gives up on us. Wherever this listener is right now, at the start of their day, during a quiet moment, or at the close of the night, may what they heard today take root deep in their heart. May it encourage them, challenge them, and remind them that the same God who moved in these ancient stories is still moving today. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. New stories released every week on the Shepherd's Lantern. God bless you. We'll see you in the next one.